Hello. So, how has everybody been? As for myself, I've been kind of just trying to gather up as many replay clips as I can before we end up eventually getting that new engine change to the game. Because usually every time that there's a new engine upgrade for Path of Titans, it usually ends up just breaking replay mode, so strike while the iron is still working, I guess. Or while I still have a hammer to strike said iron in the first place. But either way, outside of that, and keeping an eye on the PTB change blog, we've got quite an interesting video for you today. Kinda in the same vein as how I broke EO Triceratops before. First will be the whole setup of the group along with a bunch of math, and then after that is pretty much the examples of said group in action. I guess you could say today's video is an example of what organized composition groups will look like after matchmaking changes compared to what we get now, which is usually just Apex spam. I'm sure there's plenty of combinations that you could use in the future once matchmaking hits, but as an example, here's one today. And with all that out of the way, I hope you all enjoy. So to start off, I want to go over how, well, we came up with this setup. So I was playing with Zilla one time while he was streaming, and he did a 6-man Serato group, which eventually ended up turning into, well, let's just say everyone in stream joined as well, and we ended up fighting Megapacks with our own Megapack. Let's just say that. But in the middle of all of that, there were 2 Albertas that were in this fight, and I noticed we had all our setup ready, and we were super buffed up as Ceratos. We were dealing good damage. But these 2 Albertas were using a particular ability that Alberta has, and they were just unkillable. We just could not kill them. They were so damn tanky. And so I wondered how far we could take this, and then started to have a little look into it. So let's go over what we have for the setup. And what we came to was a 4-man setup of an Alberta, a Lambio, a Struthi, and an Anno. With the Alberta being the main pillowhead of the group and being the main aggressor, with everything else providing buffs and also utility for said Alberta. So let's go over the main parts of this entire group to make it work, and maybe do a little bit of math. And so, let's start off with Alberta. You can practically run any build setup you want for Alberta, but there's only one ability that's actually necessary, and that is Solid Frill. And so let's have a quick read. Solid Frill. When hit while blocking, gain 15% armor for 45 seconds, stacks up to 20 times, and new stacks will refresh the duration. First, let's go over how armor works. Now, armor is a damage divider, and every dino pretty much has 1 armor at base, except for maybe Anno. Meaning that if you have 1 armor and you get hit by, say, 100 damage, you'll take 100 damage. But what if you have something like 2 armor? That means that 100 damage will be cut in half to 50, as 100 divided by 2 equals 50 damage. And so in the case of Alberta's Solid Frill, all you need to do is multiply that 0.15 by 20, as you have 20 stacks of it, in which then you get 3 armor. And so you can take that 3 armor and add it onto the 1 that's already at base on Alberta, meaning that you now have 4 armor. So now, after all that, if you take 100 damage, you divide it by 4, and then boom, 25 damage you are taking. Dare I say it, Alberta has the potential to become scarier than Anno when fighting it on the spot. There's a reason why it was nicknamed the Mini EO. Though do be warned, all of that armor will not save you from anything that ends up doing armor-piercing damage. As in the example of this Tyler right here, even if I had maxed out Solid Frill active, I'd still be taking the same amount of damage. But where this will help you is in doing something mind-numbingly easy, as in just standing in front of a Tyrannotitan and face-tanking it to death. This Tyrannotitan only got hit 2 times by puncture from the Kentro, and the rest of it was just me. Hell, the Tyrannotitan even had a Serato to try and deal some damage to help it out, to stop me from just standing in front of it and doing what I'm doing. I'm gonna leave the rest of this for you to just watch. Okay, that's actually ridiculous. Mate, mate, what is that? What is that? Just value. Just value. But a single tanky Alberta is not what a strong group makes. So let's go over what will also be supporting our very, very tanky boy. So, first up we have Anno with Club Fortress. Increases your and all group members' armor by 25% within 50 meters. And along with that then, we have Razorback. While you are in crouch stance, you provide 25% increased damage to your group members within 50 meters. So in other words, this Anno is just made to just buff everything. But they are not the only buffer. We also have Lambio, because of course we do, with combat calls this time. So first off we have Call to Arms, 25% increased attack damage for all group members within 30 meters for 90 seconds. Then the same thing for armor, 25% increased armor for all group members within 30 meters for 90 seconds. And then lastly is Blaring Cry, which all enemies within 30 meters deal 25% reduced damage for 90 seconds. So already that's 50% increased attack damage per hit. Next up is Struthy, in which the most important part of Struthy is Swift Tempo. Decreases ability cooldowns by 25% for all group members within 30 meters for 15 seconds, along with Safeguard for 10% increased armor, and then Tantrum for another 10% increased attack damage. Those are all the buffs that we're going to be utilizing, so I think it's time for a little bit more math. So we're going to be getting 25% increased attack damage from Anno, 25% from Lambio, and then 10% from Struthy. And that's leaving us with a lovely 60% increased attack damage. But attack damage is not all that matters for this setup. Struthy also has Swift Tempo, which reduces cooldowns by 25%. And so if you multiply the damage of any playable in the game by 60% and then end up reducing their attack cooldown by 25%, you end up essentially doubling the amount of damage they do over, say the amount of time they just stand there swinging. Now, while the 100 damage that I've put in the math is just an example number to make it easier to keep track of, the multipliers in which this 100 damage is being affected by is actually in-game, and you should really use it. But now that I've mumbled on long enough over all this boring math, I think it's time I start to show a little bit of it in practice. So, let's get into it. And so for the beginning of this, we started off in Wilemi Forest, grouped up, made our way through East Passage, and headed towards the Waystone, as usually you always find someone there. The southeastern Waystone is usually always used by the large groups that like to frequent mudflats. And since we have quite a good feeling of what we'll probably be up against, since, global chat usually exists, we decided to do something a little cheesy, and I had Julie beat the hell out of me to stack up my solid frill. As soon as that's stacked up, we can just keep that up indefinitely by just asking Julie every so often to, hit me again. And funnily enough, you can also use alpha critters who are willing to attack you to also build up your stacks. But there's no time to talk about that. There's a Sarko that's been called out shortly up ahead. And I'd personally rather not have it be around since, hey, the Struthy is going to be a vital part of the group and Sarkos are very scary. It's my guess that the Sarko is probably on their way to the home cave, but I'm also then wondering, why didn't they go to the one that's in Stonebed Shoal? But either way, they ended up eventually making it to the water, pretty much on death scars, but my stacks are looking like they're about to run out soon, so I asked Julie to hit me.
Hit with your tail, or hit me with anything. There we go.
And so we cross over the log bridge over into the northern part of Coastland Swamp, and then swim across over into Mudflats, where unfortunately all of my stacks of solid frill have run out, and so I ask Aston on Struthy to do me a favour.
Give me a couple of kicks. Okay, Julie, your turn.
Being able to beat the hell out of your friend on Alberta is a good way to let out frustration. You should try it.
Oh, I see a Rex. Oh, more.
Try not to read too much into me asking for more beatings, but hey, they were happy to oblige. But on the side note, they should really just remove this whole thing of your group mates being able to actually stack up
12 stacks so far.
It's useful right now in the terms that, hey, we usually end up using this against mega packs and all of that crap. But after the matchmaking change, it won't really be necessary, will it? Then again, it's not even necessary now. But either way, up ahead are 2 Spinos and 2 Annos that are probably going to start attacking me since I started attacking this adolescent Rex. In which I'd say that's perfectly fine. It's a perfect chance for us to test out this group setup.
I think I could fuck up this Spino.
And so I charge in mindlessly, fully confident, fully buffed up. I know that I can pretty much either tail ride the Spino or just face tank it indefinitely. All I gotta remember to do is just at least, hit some blocks every now and then to keep up my tankiness. And when looking in replay, the Spino's already lost a quarter of their health, in which now it runs into water, leaving room for the Anno to try and do some work. And I gotta be fair, this Mela Anno tried their best not to actually give me any more stacks whenever they were trying to attack me. But eventually, they're gonna have to give me some stacks from blocks. And at this point now, I'm kind of just trying to give Taj a little bit of time in order to inch their way forward, and then maybe bone break this Anno themselves. Though his main focus is to be providing damage and armor to everybody in the group, hey, he's an Anno. He's still very valuable, especially in this case of facing other Annos. But either way, as he dragged the Mela Anno away, the Albino came in to deal whatever damage. But there is a problem for both of these Annos right now.
At this point, I'm actually tankier than these Annos.
Yeah, let's just say the only chance they would really have of dealing any decent damage is with fall damage at this point. But that's fine. We have Taj pretty much keeping the Mela Anno completely busy, while I'm pretty much just trying to deal whatever damage I can to the Albino Anno. The only pain in the ass right here is that I am fully tenderized, meaning that I could be bone broken permanently until I'm dead. The only thing is, they would not be able to actually outtrade me. And along with that, they're also trying to be very careful not to get fully tenderized by Taj themselves. And all of this is happening right now, while the first Spino that I charged at is just watching us from across the river, while their friend comes over in order to actually, well, deal whatever damage they could with their full AoE build. And let's just say thank God that I am a super tanky Alberta and not a 2-slot that would get pretty much one-cycled by a Claw Slam. But now here's where a Hats randomly shows up, and Astin, all I can say is she flew a little too close to the sun and ended up also getting finished by a Sarko right afterwards.
No.
It won't make much difference in terms of my tankiness if Astin is here or not, but it will make a huge difference in now that I am now dealing a lot less damage per second. But also, can I just add, while I'm fighting these Spinos right here, Taj has been doing a lovely job of just keeping both of the Annos busy. And Taj isn't even running like full AoE or anything like that. He's just bullying them. And both of these Annos right now, before they started crossing the water, also defended by Tylos, were both around a quarter of their health left, while Taj, as you can see, is practically still full health. The armor calls from Lambio, along with Anno being one of Taj's favourite playables to play, make a huge difference in the case that, well, we're in an actual synergistic group comp right here, that is actually using mechanics and buffs and coordination in order to get the job done. And this setup, it sounds like a lot, and it is a lot, but it's something that actually fits in a 12-slot group. It's just that we're using the synergies and mechanics and benefits of buffs that the game provides, instead of the usual, oh, we could have 4 people, but all go, I don't know, Tylos, Rexes, Spinos, Sukos. But let's get back on track. Everything is pretty much run into the water and cross the river. We wouldn't be able to cross and finish them, because there's a bunch of Tylos in there. This Hats has come back, and it's the only thing that's actually dealt a good chunk of damage all in one bit, thanks to Wingbeat. And so I decided to try and get some food at the berry bush just to, well, bait out the Hats, because this Hats has already proven what I've always said, that Hats is just a revenge pick 90% of the time, every time. And they take the bait. And like that, the Hats was dead. And so after that, we knew we weren't going to be able to finish off the group that we were just fighting, because, hey, they got a bunch of semi-aquatics and full aquatics to allow them to cross the river safely, and they can just leave whenever they want. Same story as old as time. And so we hide among the trees for a few minutes and just quickly heal up, thanks to Julie's healing presence. Before then starting to make our way towards Twisted Forest in order to go and waste on Aston. And once Aston was finally reunited with us, we started to make our way west towards Cedrus. But before actually hitting the river, we end up spotting the Spino that, well, I immediately wanted to have a go at. And so we attacked it a couple of times. It immediately went into the water because why wouldn't it? It's a Spino, that's where they belong. And then, almost as if retribution for our aggression, there was a small Alberta that was in the river in which the Spino immediately started to go for. And so we buffed up. I got whatever stacks I could, either from the Spino by blocking an attack, or by Julie and Aston hitting me. And along with that, there was also a Hats that showed up that wasn't a big fan of the Spino. We kind of just left it alone for the most part. But then I heard the sound of my second least favourite playable in the game, and decided to immediately cross the river, and, well, kill a baby Achillo. Looking forward to the comments for that one. But either way, I ended up getting a couple more Horned Frill stacks and hopped into the water to kind of just go and play with the Spino a little bit. All while the Hats was grieving over the death of the baby Achillo. At this point, they come into the realization that they shouldn't have tried to help us. And now, whoever hurt their friend is gonna pay.
It tickles. It tickles. When the Spino tickles. Whoa. Nah. Get out of the way, Aston. Aston.
How very unfortunate for you, Hats. You watched your friend get killed by the people that you tried to help,
You have food now.
and then decided to try and avenge them, only to meet the same fate. But look on the bright side. The Spino got fed. Not that we'd ever be able to kill it because of the nature of semi-aquatics, but hey, silver linings. And so we end up moving on through Stillwater Bog, getting a quick drink of water and filling up our food, before then trying to make our way towards Cedrus Forest.
Oh, fuck. I hear Tylo's over in Cedrus.
At least that's what I thought, was Tylo's over in Cedrus. Instead, what it actually was a Tylo that had waddled onto land, going after a Death Scars Rex that had already popped their rampage. And so, like brave, heroic people, we swam over and started attacking this evil Tylo on land to make them pay for their crimes. Grrr. And then, after killing this evil Tylo, we then just killed the Rex. No witnesses. What, you thought we were gonna be heroic and save someone? There's no such thing as a chilled ceratopsid. Anyway, we ended up making our way over into Cedrus Forest by crossing this river, and we got ready for whatever we were about to come up against, because we have read in Global that there's quite a lot there.
The support dino that beats up its friends.
All we're doing is following the sound of the roars that we can hear from the group that's here.
La 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 lava, chicken.
Eventually we make it to the area where we're hearing all the noise from, and there is a lot here. That being a group consisting of a Kentro, a Rex, 2 Iguanodons, and 2 Megs, both fighting 2 adolescent ducks. And it covers quite a lot of bases. They've got something fast that does bleed, something fast that does venom, they've got bone break from the Rex, they've got Iguanodons that are able to just brawl. But what they're missing here is actual group synergy. In other words, nothing is buffing each other. In which now
Can I get
they're
one
about to
more?
learn the difference. And to be honest, I'm fine with just letting the Kentro get that first hit. It ended up refreshing my Horned Frill stacks,
They want some.
allowing me to pretty much try and drag these Iggies to come and just face tank me, as they are. Though Iggies are quite scary, thanks to their, overhead arm slam attack, which actually does piercing damage. The rest of everything that's here, though, can comfortably just be face tanked. But let's not forget, I am not alone. I have other people who are in the group also fighting, like Taj, giving bone break and damage towards the Rex, while I'm pretty much taking the attention of the Iggies. And as I said, the scariest part of their setup right now is the piercing damage from the Iguanodons. And so, well, with that one Iguanodon pretty much almost dead, they hop into the river, and I decide not to jump in, instead to just go after the Rex instead. Getting rid of their big value item being the Rex is probably the most important part, as any just random bone break on, say, the Lambie or Struthi is just a game over for them. And so, while I keep the attention of the Kentro, this Megalania, and the Rex, everyone else is keeping attention on the Iguanodons over there. And with my setup right now, I am perfectly comfortable in just face-tanking this Rex, even with just a quarter HP. Julie then finishes off one of the Megs, while another Meg comes in.
Right,
and then eventually, the Kentro comes in and gets slammed to death.
Okay, that's dead.
The only things that did escape are one Meg and both of the Iguanodons. Because, hey, they just crossed the river and we didn't want to take our chances of swimming and possibly getting attacked by a semi-aquatic. It would be better if we just walked away and gave our chance to actually recover. And afterwards we stayed in Cedrus for maybe another 15 minutes, just wondering if they would come back, in which sadly they didn't. But that's fine. As you can see in the bottom left, it was getting pretty damn late anyway, and I was pretty damn tired. And so, as I said, we waited here for about 15 minutes. Nothing really showed up that was actually interesting to go against, other than, you know, just a couple of baby ducks and some concavs that were in the area that didn't really want to do anything. And so, we eventually ended up just logging off at the cave.
I trust Taj. I trust Taj to bring the hammer down.
And so here we are at the end. As I said at the beginning of the video in the intro, I guess you could look at this video as just an example of one of many combinations that you could do in this game for a group setup. And, well, once the matchmaking hits, if you want to get an organized group, you're gonna need to do that in the first place anyway, so why not get some practice now? Outside of that, after the matchmaking hits, I'm sure there'll probably be some new community servers that'll pop up, specifically for anybody who wants the old officials type of combat back, where they come back endlessly. They could even go ahead and call it like Path of Nostalgia or something like that, but don't forget, if anybody uses that name for a server and it gets traction, don't forget to credit me for the name. But anyway, when you look at Alberta, it's kind of weird that it does Eotrike's job better than Eotrike. Eotrike is just in a horrible state right now. Just a boring kit, you know, boring playstyle. It just runs into things and deals damage until it dies. Because it's gonna die, it's not if the EO dies, it's when it's gonna die. But anyway, if anyone has any other combos they'd love to share, pop them down in the comments and I'd love to have a read. But with all that out of the way, I hope you all enjoyed. And I hope you all have a lovely day. Bye.